Day 28 of the Karen Read Retrial. It is Friday. It's June 6th. Hopefully you had a good day off. We needed to talk about the fact that on Wednesday after court, Karen Read spoke to the media, which she has been doing. Yes, her lawyers have a gag order. No, she does not. She spoke to the media and said that they should be done more or less with their case by Tuesday next week. So this case might go to the jury next week. They were told it was an 8-week trial, except for deliberations, and it looks like they might get this trial within that 8-week window, which is wild. At the very end of the day, the judge came back onto the bench for like 30 seconds, give or take a few seconds, and ruled on the motion or the renewed motion for reconsideration to have the police procedure expert, Michael Easter, testify for the defense. The court denied it. I thought that they were going to use Officer Barros for that a little bit more, but they didn't. Who knows what's coming next? Well, except for all of us at this point, because today, chat, gird your loins, today is ARCCA Day.
Myself and one of our lab technicians at ARCCA, we designed and developed a pressurized air cannon. So it was capable of firing a projectile such as a drinking glass at the taillight. So it essentially, you can think of it kind of as a giant cannon, but it had a barrel, and then there was a valve that would open rapidly and directly behind.
They yeet cannon a drinking glass so they could yeet cannon a drinking glass at a car and see if it would shatter a taillight. His job is Mythbusters. His job is Mythbusters. It's like, let's rig up a cannon to fire whiskey glasses at a car.
Behind that was a pressurized vessel.
He likes the cannon,
and
for sure.
Depending on the pressure, the PSI of that vessel would determine essentially the speed at which that glass would be projected into the taillight.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Under what circumstance did you determine that it was
leading.
consistent with a drinking glass?
If that drinking glass, again, the purpose of the test was to do a test to evaluate or simulating somebody throwing a drinking glass at the taillight. So that's what that test was to demonstrate.
Understood.
Again, for a scientific expert, what I expect from all of the scientific expert testimony, not just from this case, but others, is it is consistent. Think of all of the lab techs we saw. How did they testify? This is consistent with this result. This is consistent with that result. They will not say, oh, I can tell you 100% for sure this came from that. They don't. But this is consistent with that. Not what we saw from Dr. Welcher, who said that is what happened.
This is looking at the exemplar vehicle that we utilized for the latter part of our testing. You're looking at the, again, just annotating.
Wait, there's an exemplar vehicle? I didn't know that. That's real helpful.
Where the liftgate taillight is, as well as the quarter panel taillight.
When you say exemplar vehicle, what is this SUV that we're looking at?
So it's the same year, make, and model of the subject vehicle. So it's a 2021 Lexus LX 570. So it's the same weight, same geometry, same as the subject vehicle.
Fine.
Is this a picture off the internet, or do you actually have access to this truck?
We have access to that vehicle, yes.
I mean, it's an SUV, but okay.
Regarding all of the tests you conducted, what did you observe with regard to the damage, if any, to the internal components of the quarter panel taillight?
He got real close to what if any right there.
Chrome pieces and the diffusers.
And still sidestepped it.
It was less in all of the tested taillights than that of the subject taillight.
Did you reach any opinions or conclusions as to whether the damage...
Less damage. There was less damage to all of the testing than there was to the subject taillight, to Karen Read's taillight. Dr. Wolfe testified this morning, an entirely different testimony than we saw at the first trial, because they did a substantial amount of testing that they didn't do last time. Why? Dr. Wolfe is trying to prove kind of a different thing than they were asked to do at the first trial. At the first trial, they came in to testify about the testing they had done with the federal government. Now, they did not say the federal government. They were not hired by the defense, and that's it. But at that time, they had been hired as accident reconstructionists take everything and see what happened. In this trial, ARCCA had a slightly different role. They were allowed to testify some about what they talked about in the first trial, that report, but they weren't really allowed to go too into depth on that report and their own accident reconstruction because there were discovery issues. The discovery issues with regard to ARCCA are mostly due to the fact that the federal government still has things that are well under seal and not available to the Commonwealth or the defense, things that the feds won't turn over. And the court can go, hey, feds, turn this over. And they can go, yeah, no, they're not giving it to the defense. They're not giving it to the prosecution because it's subject to a federal grand jury, and that is sealed. So they were able to talk about it a little bit, but what they really are here to do is to rebut Dr. Welcher's testimony. So they are doing all of the testing they did to rebut Dr. Welcher's testimony. Dr. Welcher did all the paint on the arm and said, okay, the arm was at this angle, and ARCCA goes, okay, the arm's at this angle. Then what happens? And so this is the defense rebutting Dr. Welcher, which is why they took Dr. Welcher's premise that this is how the arm was. And then they ran test after test after test after test to see if that was consistent. You know, like they peer reviewed something. This is your premise. Great. Let's test it. And they did a ton of testing that we did not see the first trial because it was not done before the first trial. Some of it was, though, including the cannon. The yeet cannon was done the first time, and we saw the yeet cannon discussed, and we saw pictures of it this time, which is really more than we saw last time and more than I expected with regard to the cannon. And the cannon shooting a rocks glass at the tail light did damage that Dr. Wolfe said was consistent with the damage to Karen Read's tail light. Here's what I found really interesting about that. When Dr. Wolfe was breaking down the structure of the taillight, Dr. Wolfe showed that the red plastic was the outside of the taillight casing, but that clear plastic and the metally dongly bit that we were like, where the fuck is that from, are from the inside. And there's two gaskets running horizontal and then going up vertical on the inside or the inner portion of the taillight. And that metally dongly bit goes in between those. So there is 5 millimeters of red plastic. Then there is a gap, and then the clear plastic with the dots on it inside. So we actually learned that there are 2 layers of the taillight, and finding which damage replicated both layers of taillight being broken was really interesting. I don't think they talked about the fact that those were from 2 different layers the first trial at all. And if they did, I didn't perceive it. Because when Dr. Wolfe was explaining it today, I was like, wait, that's where they came from. They came from the inside. You've got the red and then the clear. And it just was so much clearer when they were talking about it this time. And then we saw all of the crash test dummies being struck by a Exemplar Lexus. The damage to the Exemplar Lexus varied, but none of it, in Dr. Wolfe's opinion, and this is W-O-L-F-E, not Wolf hungry like the. Emily, there's 2 Dr. Wolfes, yes, but the damage to the taillight, Dr. Wolfe testified, was consistent with the rocks glass being thrown, not consistent with any of the vehicle strikes to the arms. And they went through video after video after video. Dr. Rentschler is going to be the one that testifies about the damage that would have caused to the arm. We're just not there yet. But we saw the damage it caused to the car. None of the tests with the vehicle striking the arm damaged the inside gaskets of the taillight. This taillight, the interior part of the taillight, was not damaged even when the rest of the Lexus was kind of wrecked, including the back windshield shattered out. But also, in every single example that they did where the dummy was clothed in a hoodie that matched, not in color, but in structure and brand, to John O'Keefe's hoodie, none of those tests damaged the hoodie. Not a single one damaged the hoodie. I think that's really interesting testimony before the lunch break. What do you think?
This is the arm that you used in all of your videos, right?
Correct, yes.
And you can see, could you zoom in, Ms. Gilman, on the weight? 9.38 pounds.
Yes.
Right. There's a bigger difference between 9.38
Oh, they put it on a scale.
and 11.86 than there is 12 and 11.86, isn't there?
Correct, yes.
So when you do the math, and have you done the math before on this? When you do the math, it's 26% difference, isn't it?
In terms of more force?
No, of mass, weight, 26% difference,
Okay.
right?
I'm going to trust you. Yeah,
Well, do you have a calculator?
I do.
Can you do it?
Sure.
Okay.
Randy.
And that is the result of the impact.
Correct.
Do you see the debris field?
Yes.
Is it near rescue, Randy?
It's
Some
in
of
the
it
same
is, yes.
direction.
It's spread out a little bit, yes?
That's fair, yes.
But it's not right on his body. It's a distance from his body, yes?
That's a good point.
There may be some, I can't tell from this photo, there may be some around his body, but yes, there's also debris close to the Lexus as well.
That's a really good point.
And and this is the demonstration where you didn't turn on the videotape, so we don't have a videotape?
That's not what he said.
Correct, we had the false start, yep.
What's that?
We had the false start.
The false start. Is there another picture after this? Those clothes. Are there holes or tears in the...
Brennan, if you are going to try to argue that the damage to those clothes looked like the damage to John O'Keefe's clothes, we're going to have some issues. Because that's the type of damage to clothing I would expect to see from the road. That's exactly what I would expect to see from the road. I actually think it's a helpful point of argument, this part, for the defense. I think the debris field is a helpful point of argument for the Commonwealth. But yeah, that's not what we saw here.
Did Mr. Brennan show you the rest of the sweatshirt?
No.
What did the rest of the sweatshirt look like after this full-on impact when he was launched on the asphalt?
Mangled. So there was not only significant road rash to the clothing.
When the prosecution only shows you part of the picture and doesn't ask about the rest of it, I think that it frustrates people. Because if the defense showed you the arm and then said, what about the rest of it? Everybody would be like, what is the defense hiding? Same. What does the rest of it look like? Completely fucked. Mangled. Not mangoed. Mangled.
What did the rest of the sweatshirt look like after this full-on impact when he was launched on the asphalt?
Mangled. So there was not only significant road rash to the clothing all over the torso section, the left arm, the right arm. There was holes in many different locations of various sizes. There was also just on the skin of the dummy, there was road rash on the face had been scraped. The torso had been scraped. So there was significant body damage to the torso as well.
Oh, you can see it on the
Just the
face.
sweatshirt.
I didn't even see that when I was looking at the holes in the arms, but you can see the road rash on the nose and Randy on the nose and chin.
Are you aware that anybody has ever measured the weight of just John O'Keefe's right arm?
I'm not aware of that, no.
When you were asked questions about whether or not his arm weighed 11.8 pounds, are you aware of anybody ever weighing just his arm?
No.
What is that based on? 11.8, where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Mr. Brennan mentioned the word statistic. Based on the statistics, his arm would weigh that much. Height, weight, etc.
Correct.
Does a statistic determine the actual weight of an arm?
No, not conclusive to what Mr. O'Keefe's arm weighed, no.
As you sit here, do you know whether his arm, John O'Keefe's right arm, if weighed by itself accurately, because pounds and apparently half pounds matter, if it weighed 11.8 pounds or if it weighed 9.4 pounds? Do you know?
I don't know, no.
Day 28. And it was a full ARCCA day with Dr. Wolfe. Are we almost at the end of this case? Well, after court on Wednesday, Karen Read said she thought they should be done by around Tuesday, give or take. We will see, but we are nearing the end of this case. The court told the jury at the end of today, we are nearing the end of this case. And we went through the entire cross-examination of Dr. Wolfe with Hank Brennan. Now, Brennan did a lot of the things that we can predict, including asking Dr. Wolfe about things that aren't in his realm of expertise, like the injuries. That's for the biomedical engineer. I don't remember which parlance Dr. Welcher prefers, but we're going to hear from him, I would imagine, on Monday. We left the end of the court day with Alan Jackson in redirect of Dr. Wolfe, talking about the experiments. Brennan did ask some questions that I was curious about too, because when we see the experiments with the Rescue Randy and the crash test dummy arm and other things, they are fixed to either a harness or something else to keep them standing, to keep the arm in the position that Dr. Welcher had done his paint experiment with. So when Brennan was questioning about the real world impact of this and, hey, this was fixed on a harness, so the body's not going to move with the car. Hey, this isn't exactly what it would be real world. I can understand his points, because some jurors might say, oh, that is a good point. The arm would move a bit differently, or could move a bit differently, or go with the car, or you would end up somewhere else because it is fixed. Where he lost me in that line of questioning is then when he went back to, but in this experiment, you don't see any lower extremity injuries, do you? Well, does it mirror a real world situation, or does it not mirror a real world situation? It can't be both. So he was trying to say, this isn't what it would be in reality, but also, doesn't this show you how it is in reality? What? He also got into who hired you, who paid you. You tried to say that you were completely independent in this and hold yourself out in this way, and you used signal to message. I think all of it came across a bit disingenuous to me because of everything we've seen in this trial. When Brennan started making substantive points, he was making points that he and his experts can argue. But the experts get paid and experts communicate with attorneys, and you had to retake the second half of your ACTAR certification. Okay, sure. But Brennan did get into lines of questioning that he's going to argue. He used the videos to show how debris was moving. He used the videos to show multiple times the debris field. And so some of the jurors are going to look at that and say, hey, that makes sense. Look at the way the taillight's moving. Does it address the way that the hoodie is damaged? Not yet. We are not there. We have not seen how the taillight would damage the hoodie like that. That has not been explained. But we went through lots of the videos showing the debris and showing how it moved from the vehicle. What did not sit well with me is when you saw Brennan showing the arm of Rescue Randy after Randy got like yeeted down the street and showing the holes in the hoodie. These are the type of holes you would expect to see, wouldn't you? Well, on redirect, you've got Alan Jackson getting up and saying, what's the rest of it look like? There's holes in the sleeve. What does the rest look like? And he's like, the whole thing, Wolfe, not Jackson, was mangled. There were holes all over it. The rescue dummy was road rashed, and there was road rash all over the hoodie and holes elsewhere. It was mangled. That was his word. I'm not being hyperbolic at this moment. You had Brennan showing just that little bit saying, look, there's holes. And then they zoom out and ask big picture, and it's no, the whole thing had damage to it. It's so frustrating when Brennan is playing hide the ball with that type of evidence and then turning around and asking the witness, but you're here to help the jury find the truth, aren't you? It's your goal to help the jury see the whole picture and find the truth. Okay. Brennan also made much about the weight of the arm for the crash test dummy. And the weight of the arm for the crash test dummy on the testing was 9.38 pounds. But Brennan's expert said statistically, at John O'Keefe's height and weight, his arm should weigh around 11 and a little pounds. But why didn't you use the 12-pound arm? And Dr. Wolfe kept saying the calculations to adjust that would come into the injury calculation, and that's Dr. Welcher, not me. I'm trying to evaluate the damage to the taillight And Dr. Wolfe kept trying to explain, for my testing to the damage to the taillight, the arm is going to take kind of the kinetic trajectory and force from the vehicle. So the arm is going to speed up to the speed of the vehicle. I think some might actually get into, oh, but it is interesting that the weight of the arm is less than the weight of John O'Keefe's arm. I'm interested to see how that gets discussed when we get into Dr. Rentschler's testimony and how much the weight of the test arm matters. It's interesting to see how important it was to Brennan that the test arm be exactly the same with the speed of the cars when the testing by his expert was so incredibly different. So it will be interesting to see Dr. Rentschler's testimony. And then, well, we know Dr. Welcher will be back on rebuttal, so there are many questions yet to be answered. So at the end of today, we are partway through the ARCCA testimony, more ARCCA testimony to come, and then rebuttal. I think the point for Brennan that was most helpful was using the videos to show debris field and showing that those arms are harnessed to things. So they're an approximation. I do think the videos were tremendously helpful for the jury to get an idea of how this might have happened. And again, I will be curious to see if Alan Jackson ties back around that the point of Dr. Wolfe's testimony was to test Welcher's theories and not to investigate their own accident reconstruction. That's the point of their testimony here. We took what Welcher was doing and then we tested that. And we took different tests to see if the damage to the taillight based on that theory was consistent. What I found most helpful from all the testimony today, and I love the videos, I love talking about the yeet cannon. Anytime experts can explain something so the jury can visualize it and understand it, it's great. But what I found most helpful was the explanation between the outer plastic on the taillight and the inner plastic on the taillight, the diffuser plastic. That was incredibly helpful to me to understand the depth of the damage that would need to be done to the taillight and the fact that there was 5 millimeters of red plastic, then the air or gas gap, and then the diffusers that were another 3 millimeters. So really interesting to hear the difference between the thicknesses of the polycarbonate acrylic plastic and the fact that there are 2 layers. I thought that was incredibly illuminating. And for the first time, we've heard an explanation of where the chrome plastic dongly bit came from, because that was in between the clear plastic gaskets in the taillight. Who knew? The part that Carrie Roberts remembered seeing when the taillight was broken. Really, really helpful testimony. And I don't know if they talked about it last trial. I don't remember it from last trial. It's one of those details I feel like I would, because when they pulled out that chrome bit again, all of us were like, where did it come from? No one explained. Well, now we know. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.